We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be prepared with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
Welcome to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Hammond. This is John Gapp. This is Lonaiah Farrell, and this is our producer, Dee Schrader. And wow, there's so much to talk to you about, but
so much.
I just, with the Ukraine defending itself against Russia, the Russian army, if we really trust what's going on, bogged down over there. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but that's not going to be our subject.
Right.
Really what we want to talk to you about is what happens next, because we believe the Bible basically calls it. And this is coming. This is a war. This next war will make the Ukraine-Russian war look minuscule. Yeah. By the number of players involved. And if you're just like, oh, no, this is out of the Bible. Well, let me tell you something. There's been 1,800 prophecies that have been fulfilled out of the Bible, yet everyone wants to lift up Nostradamus with his 1 to 200 predictions that came true. 1,800 prophecies out of the Bible have been fulfilled. 80% of the prophecies in the Bible have come to fruition. Yeah. And this is another one that's going to come, and the Bible's already lining up. It's out of Ezekiel 38 and part of 39.
Can I just say real quick, we're going into Bible prophecy, and there's so much more accuracy over 18 predictions, way more accurate than the news that you get here in the United States on a daily basis, right? I mean, we're seeing stuff coming out of the news over the last 4 to 6 to 10 years that everything gets debunked all the time that is pushed out, and it seems like propaganda when you look at it, when you look back. But we're looking at words and prophecies from thousands of years ago that are accurate and that are trustworthy, that we can see time and time again are reliable, right? Yeah. So what a time to have people say things to you all the time that are not reliable, but we can look at the Bible and see that people and prophecies are reliable all through the ages.
That's why when even just watching the news, I don't, the world is lifting up, and not that I support anything that Russia's doing, and what they did. The Ukrainian leader, the president, you can look into him, but I'll just say this, I've been kind of waiting for someone to come to the forefront, because I believe we are in the last days, and be propped up. And I will just tell you this, he is not all that he seems. But we are talking about this Gog and Magog war out of Ezekiel chapter 38, a little bit of 39. And the Bible calls it, this is going to happen next, okay? Yeah. I believe it's going to happen but before the rapture. And this is Russia being emboldened. This is the setup for this. I'm just going to read Ezekiel 38, verses, starting out here, verses 1, 2, and 3. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And say, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. That is Russia, okay? And I don't have... I'm not going to go into... Now, remember, when this was being prophesied thousands of years ago, the countries were called different things. You can study this out to see that this is Gog. Well, some people say Gog is a man, and the land of Magog is Russia. It's Russia, okay? Right. And so it's talking about Russia here, and as we go into verse 3 and say, thus saith the Lord, he's against Russia, right? Verse 4, now this is what I want to get into. And I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws. I will bring thee forth all thine armies, horses and horsemen. Remember, the prophet, he has no idea when he's looking at tanks and he's looking at jeeps and he's looking at these helicopters and all these things. They didn't have words for that.
Right.
All of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers, shields, all of them handling swords. Yeah. So the first 4 verses here, there's going to be a hook in the jaw of Russia, okay? The Lord is going to put a hook in his jaw. Now, boy, there's a lot of discussion we could have on what the hook in the jaw is going to bring Israel or bring Russia south, all right, farther than the Ukraine, down to the borders of Israel.
So, like, if you were to put a hook in a beast to draw them into something, basically to drag them into a conflict.
Right.
So what you're saying.
And something is going to draw their armies down from the north, and we're going to just get into this chapter. And I think there's a lot that's gone on that people just don't understand. That you've got Israel has a discovery of 30 trillion metric yards of natural gas. 30 trillion metric yards, and they're discovering more all the time. You've got Egypt and Jordan buying up huge amounts of this gas from Israel, which is money out of Russia's pocket. Lonaiah, I think you found out how much money they're taking out of Russia's pocket.
So they said that because of Israel having this gas that they just found, it takes $1 billion out of Russia's pocket today. So if we want to talk about what's causing aggression for Russia right now, like you're looking at money and economy, and if you read reports like Jen Psaki just said in a White House interview, you had Condoleezza Rice just do an article on Putin. They're saying Putin is like, he's always like kind of cold-hearted and heartless and aggressive towards things, but they said all of a sudden he like flicked a switch and everyone's like, we don't understand this man. Like, where is all this coming from? You had Jen Psaki saying, we think that the last 2 years of Putin being in lockdown or isolation has made him crazy. Then you have Condoleezza Rice saying, like, he's doing all these. She said, I've had multiple meetings with Putin. All of a sudden, he's doing something, like, totally against his behavior, everything we've seen from him so far. His generals are afraid of him. He's saying, hey, if anybody tries to come against us, we're going to fight you with all the nukes we have. Like, he's saying, hands off.
Wow.
Don't cross us.
So it's kind of a quick turn.
Yeah, and they're saying like it's out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden he's like possessed by something.
And it could be a demon. He could be insane, or it could be the hook in the jaw. It could be just insanity, or it could be the Israeli natural gas. And Russia is a big supplier to Europe. 1/3 of all the of all the gas and oil, gasoline, natural gas, and now Israel's starting to curb that market on them. Or, we could have some kind of issue, but something's going to bring him down. Yeah. Something is going to bring the Russian bear south to the borders of Israel. Yep. We're calling it, and a lot of people have been calling it. And, let's just look at verses 5 and 6 here. Here's the countries that they bring with them. Russia brings Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, verse 6, and Gomer, all of his bands, the house of Tagarmah and the north quarters, and all of his bands, and many people with thee. So it's not just these countries. Listen, you've got, let me tell you who this is. Ethiopia, back then, that is Sudan today, okay? That is the Sudan, country of Sudan today. They currently have peace with a treaty with Israel. Yeah. But it's a scam because Mike Pompeo had to pressure Sudan to make that treaty with Israel in order to take them off the terrorist watch list threat. Right. But Sudan hates Israel. You've got Persia is Iran, all right? You've got Ethiopia is Sudan. And the countries of Libya or possibly around Libya. Have you guys got any comments on any of that? Should I just look at the next verse says Gomer and all his bands? Yeah. That is people think that's either Turkey or Germany. All right, that's disputed among scholars who Gomer is. I believe it's Turkey. We've seen Germany flip-flop, refuse to condemn the Ukrainian invasion, and then they did condemn it. But remember, they get all their oil and gas from Russia.
Right.
So
they're kind of they're connected. Well, I mean, if you look at the region, obviously Turkey is very close to Israel and the whole region there.
listen,
It is.
we need
Sure
one.
is.
We needed one of Derek's noises there. But listen, all these countries, they're in the region around Israel.
Right.
And here's the catch. They're all aligned. They're all friends. Right. Yes, they are. They're all connected. You know, again, just to mention it again, you've got Iran, you've got Sudan, you've got Libya, you've got Turkey, you've got Russia, and, you know, Syria is kind of the staging point, I believe. Can I just say this? They're all aligned, okay? Militarily, economically, all these countries are aligned. You've got 2 Russian bases in Syria. Right. That's the country right above Israel, okay, to the north.
Well, in the last few days, I mean, even since the last time we talked, Israel has been running flight mission after flight mission, bombing after bombing over the things. I mean, it's reported that it's Iranian terrorist groups or whatever bases, but there's more than that. But they're very active right now, Israel into Syria, just to protect themselves.
Right. Can I read why
Yeah.
that's happening? The Russian mission of UN tweeted on Sunday that Polinsky said, we're concerned over Tel Aviv's announced plans for expanding settlement activity in the occupied Golan Heights, which contradicts the provisions of the 1949 Geneva Convention. Russia didn't recognize Israel's sovereignty over Golan Heights that are part of Syria.
So, listen, you've got rhetoric right now. While they're invading Ukraine, they're already pointing towards the land Israel has that they won against Syria from the 67 war when Syria invaded. Israel hit back, took the Golan Heights, and Russia's pointing at that land right now, and they're saying, we don't believe they should have that. And that was just a tweet from them. Who was that from, Lonaiah, again?
It was from the Russian mission of UN.
Okay, so 2 Russian bases in Syria, hundreds of bombing missions into Syria against Iranian targets from the Israelis, a lot of surface-to-surface missiles also. And Iran has taken this whole Ukraine thing, and they are just pouring in the rockets on trucks, on planes, into Syria, outside Damascus. And also Iran is building a stronghold in Syria on the northern border of Israel. So we've got all this going on, and it's almost like what we said a few weeks ago. The Ukraine is almost like a feint. It's like a feint.
Right. And I heard the other day on a podcast that according to Israel intelligence, they believe Iran has enough uranium for one nuclear bomb, and it said it'll take them another 2 months to build another one.
Right.
So, I mean, they're getting emboldened by Russia, being like, hey, we're taking back our stuff. Well, we want to take back our area as well. And
Israel has taken out that stuff before.
Right.
One with a worm into their computer systems.
Right. Yep.
You know, there was a Iranian nuclear scientist assassinated on the streets of Tehran just 2 weeks ago. So Israel's always making moves to try to hold them back. But I will say this, and just paraphrasing Ezekiel 8:8, basically the Lord is saying, okay, all you countries, these are the countries involved, and you're going to come down like a storm. But in verse 8, I'm just paraphrasing, the prophet is saying, you know, Israel was not a country, and he brought them all back, all those Jews back to that land, starting in 1948 and even a little before when they became a country, a legalized country. The world made them a country in 1948, and Jews have been coming back ever since.
Yeah, and you have the Prime Minister of Israel asking for Jews in other countries, especially Ukraine, to come back. They just said that they had 10,000 Jews come back that are coming from Ukraine back to Israel. So
Right.
he's calling people back to the country of Israel.
And they have been. They always
Yes,
have been.
right.
But listen, this is not the battle of Armageddon, okay? This is not the battle of Armageddon. Some scholars think this is the battle of Armageddon. First of all, in the battle of, Jesus tells the Jews to flee to the mountains in regards to the tribulation, all right? This is not the tribulation, all right?
Yeah.
This is a war, I believe, before the tribulation. You won't see the Jews fleeing to the mountains in this Ezekiel 38. They call it a Gog-Magog war, right? You don't see that. This is not the end of the world as of the tribulation. And, you know, let's just go to verse, let's see, where do we leave off here? Verse 9, he says, this is interesting verse. All these armies from these countries, these 6 to 10 countries, remember, because he said many others besides those, he says, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. So it's going to be quick. It's going to be fast. It's not going to be like the Russian buildup that took 9 months. They've already got 2 bases. You've already got Iran, who's got a strong military. They're all already friends. Turkey, Iran, Russia, Sudan. They're all already good friends and aligned in many ways.
Right. I mean, signs are pointing to that. So what do we watch for? I mean, do we have more there in Ezekiel?
In studying this, a lot of people, even like Dake, different commentators are saying this is the end all war that the Bible talks. It's not, okay, because the tribulation when they come against Israel, it's all the nations of the world.
Right.
That's very clear. This is not all the nations of the world. Matter of fact, as we read further, some people think it's America are questioning, why are you doing this? I don't believe that it's America that they're talking about, but let's get into this. Ezekiel 38, we'll skip down to 11. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest and dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gate. And they're going up there, verse 12, to take spoil and to take a prey and turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle, goods that dwell in the midst of the land. Something I want to point out here, I've been to Israel 7 times, about to go again. Lonaiah's been 3 or 4 times. Most of those cities are not walled, just like this verse. You know, there's parts of Jerusalem that you're going to see on MSNBC and certain channels where, yes, there are walls to keep people groups separated, and I don't want to get into that whole thing. There are walls in certain places, fences in certain places, but most of their cities, there's no walls around those Israeli cities. And so this lines up with the Bible, what he's talking about. This is for now, and we believe this is coming really quick.
Right.
Really quick. And so
if we're talking about them coming into Israel, what are the resources that Israel has that would be plunder and booty, that it would be something for the taking? Is it just land? Is it resources?
Well, we talked about it up front. 130 trillion metric yards of natural gas, I think, is the thing that they would want as far as resources go. I mean, that like, what'd you say? How much? What was that figure they're taking out of Russia's pocket?
Like $1 billion.
$1 billion a day.
$1 billion a day. And so just for that alone, the Iranians are there for religious reasons, okay? Right. They think they have to destroy Israel, and they've never hidden that. They're part of that whole group that doesn't think Israel should be there. And but I just want to point out one other thing. Another reason that this is not the war of Armageddon at the end of the tribulation or any part of the tribulation is, let's just check out Zechariah 13, verse 8.
Yeah.
It shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. That's people, by the way. 2/3 of the people die in Israel. And I will bring the third part through the fire, will refine them as silver is refined. I will try them as gold tried. Then they shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, these are my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem. See, this is Armageddon here. This is Armageddon.
Yeah.
To battle, and the city shall be taken, and this is the Antichrist, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and the half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. You don't see this happening in Ezekiel 38.
Right.
You don't see 2/3 of the Israeli population disappearing. You don't see rape. You don't see all these things happening. That is Armageddon. All right. What we're talking about in Ezekiel is a completely different war. And so we have Israel, will be surrounded by all these nations. And it's going to happen really fast. It's not going to be a long, drawn-out build-up. They're already doing it, in a sense. They're already doing it. When Russia put the 2 bases in, everyone just said, wow, they're putting in bases, right? And so you guys, should I read through, or do you got any comments at this point? Or should I keep rolling with the scripture?
we can keep rolling that. I was just looking on Google Maps. Megiddo is a place in Israel, so that's I guess what's the difference between the unwalled areas and like talking about Megiddo, or are we just talking a different time? Because I think we looked in if this is in the 7 years of the tribulation. If the Gog and Magog war, there's things that come here in Ezekiel 38. It's going to separate it from Armageddon by time and by the players, right?
Yes, we just read it's the whole world coming against Israel in the tribulation, and about 3.5 years in that starts. Okay. But here, these unwalled villages, I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely. All of them, they are safe without walls. They are safe. If you go to Israel, they say it's safer than Minneapolis.
Right.
It really is.
That's because Minneapolis is it's not good.
Maybe that's not a good example. But I'm just saying this is this time. This is not the time of revelation. But in verse 13 it says, Sheba and Dan and the merchants of Tarshish, and we don't have time about who those exact countries are, but with all the young lions thereof shall say unto thee, art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take prey, to carry away silver and gold, and take away cattle and goods, and take a great spoil? So people think that we are the young lions, being that, the sign of Britain is a lion, and they're calling us the young lions. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know enough about it. I haven't studied really at this point. We're not involved. They don't get any help. And as we go into verse 14, therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, Russia, thus saith the Lord God, and that day when my people of Israel dwelleth safely, shalt thou not know it? And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north. Russia is north, right? Turkey is north, okay? Many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company, a mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. This is going to be a huge army. It's going to be upwards of 1 million people. It shall be in the latter days, I will bring thee against my land. Remember, he used a hook in the jaw.
Right.
That could be the Israelis going after the Iranian nuclear capability.
Sure.
It could be a million things there.
Right.
I think you're going to have a lot of people coming after Israel for different things. Like Russia is coming after them for natural gas, and then you have Iran coming at them because of uranium. So people are and also
religion.
And religion. I was getting to that. Yeah, so you have them coming at them for different reasons, but I mean, Russia, so you're looking at your economy. You try to become independent and kind of break away from everybody, and now your money is, like, they're getting money, like their bank accounts are getting shut down.
Right.
Putin just got kicked out of the World Economic Forum for the war that that this caused. Like, you have a lot of different angles and reasons why people are choosing to attack Israel.
Yeah.
But
I was speaking to a guy in our church yesterday, and he was talking about how in Moscow there are 100 billionaires living in Moscow, and there are hundreds of millionaires, multimillionaires in Moscow. And right now, their assets outside of Russia are being shut down, or being frozen. And so there's a lot of Russia pushing back, but there's a lot of stuff going on. So there's reasons to go. There's reasons for Russia to not go. So I think if this is the Gog Magog war, Russia has to be pulled into it.
Yes, and the bear's emboldened.
Yeah,
the Russian bear is emboldened, and even people that have been around, Putin, Condoleezza Rice had 12 different meetings with him. And she said he's not acting normal.
No.
So we don't know if that's a spiritual entity or what it is. And if you're just tuning in because you thought our opening was cool or something and you want to check us out.
It is cool.
Look,
it is cool. I like it.
Look, we're telling you Russia, Ukraine is not all. All right? Listen to this. If you don't hear anything else, within days, weeks, or months, they will be at the Israeli border with a coalition of countries, and that will be a major war, and it brings God into it. Verse 18, the Lord says, it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel. Gog is Russia. Yep. Saith the Lord, that my fury shall come up in my face. And wouldn't you like to see that?
Yeah.
What does that look like when the fury comes up in his face? And verse 19, for in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day shall there be a great shaking in the land of Israel. And so the Lord is like, I'm involved now. Verse 21, I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. Doesn't that sound like some of those Old Testament wars where he turned the armies against each other? Yeah. So they're going to be shooting at each other. And I know this sounds far-fetched. Watch. Just watch. Verse 22, I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain, great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. So what happens to this army, probably 1 million plus, maybe a little less, a coalition of 7 to 10 countries, literally fire is going to fall on them from the sky.
Doesn't that kind of sound like missiles and major warfare that could happen? I mean, I'm just saying.
It does. That's a good point.
I'm just thinking if Iran is getting ready to shoot something at Israel and try to destroy Israel, and something goes wrong and instead rains upon their own allies, which is Russia, which is Syria, with Damascus.
That's a great point. I never thought of that.
Something like that goes wrong.
Yeah, it could. He could be seeing missiles here,
right?
And so their own missiles could be falling on them. We don't know. The Lord's telling them what's going to happen here, and there's going to be pestilence.
Right.
They're going to be hit with all kinds of pestilence.
Nuclear stuff, obviously.
They're going to be hitting each other.
Right.
I mean, they're going to be shooting each other, it just said. And the last verse of Ezekiel 38, thus I will magnify myself, this is the Lord, and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am Lord. Now, it's not over here going into Ezekiel 39.
Yeah.
It says, there, son of man, prophesy against Gog, Russia. Thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am thee, O God, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn thee back and leave but a sixth of thee. That means the whole thing. Like if it's a 1 million man army, right? So what do you got about?
Even 180,000 left of that.
Right. Was that about 150,000? 180?
Yeah.
Okay. 180,000 left out of a 1,000,000-man army, and will cause thee to their bows and arrows and hand staves and spears. They shall burn. There's going to be so many tanks, so many down helicopters, so much equipment, so much debris.
Yeah.
All right, that it takes them 7 years to get all that stuff out of the way, and they basically they try to burn it. They try to disintegrate it. And let's see, where am I at in my notes? You guys got anything to add here?
Well, I just think of, thinking and imagining how that can play out. Obviously, we don't know exactly how that plays out, but the imagery of different allies turning on each other, and either it's confusion, whether it's someone betrays someone else, or their aims fall apart and go to different directions. It's just interesting to see that. But like you talked about the that worm, the virus that Israel put into the Iranian missile, whatever
computer system.
The computers. Israel is very, very, very high tech. I mean, I can see a lot of that. I mean, if armies are using all of the things that help to aim and direct what they're doing and their different targeting, if things like that are in play, I can see how different people are shooting at their allies because their targeting systems get influenced.
Have you heard a lot about the cyber attacks that everyone's talking about the last week?
No.
So basically everyone's saying like, okay, World War III, okay, but they're saying it's going to start with cyber attacks. So yes, all this is going on, but really if you start to attack people's, like their internet, things like that, that's why Ukraine asked Elon Musk to bring in, what's it called?
Starlink?
Yes.
Yep.
So that they would be protected from any Russian invasion.
So they could still have communications.
Yes, so that they wouldn't get shut down. But I mean, that's like a big thing is cyber attacks.
And he did bring it.
Yeah,
Starlink
he did bring it.
Was opened in the Ukraine.
Ukraine on Monday, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw a little wrench in the whole thing here. Also, I was just reminded of this. Remember the weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein they couldn't find?
Right.
That Bush was under so much pressure for not.
Yeah. Where did it go?
It went. It's in Syria. I mean, anyone in Israel will tell you that they shipped those weapons out and buried them in Syria.
Wow.
And that's just common knowledge in Syria. All right. In Israel.
Really?
If you go to Israel, and so can't you see those things possibly going up just out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But you think about the burning, and so I'm wondering about. Yeah. Also about chemical weapons also.
Right.
And just so listen, we're in Ezekiel 39 just looking at the fallout here. Russia and these countries had surrounded Israel. Mm-hmm. They were in a coalition, and God, before evidently they did not get into Israel. They're still on the outskirts of Israel when he hit them. Or I think they started to move into Israel because he says a lot of it happens in the Israeli mountains. And so, if we could go to Ezekiel 9 here, verses 3, it says, I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and I will cause thine arrows to fall out of thy right. So in other words, your AK-47s and its bullets, right? And verse 4, thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, and thy bands and thy people is with thee. And I will give thee unto ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beast of the field to be devoured. So there's so many dead guys out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, these predatory birds started migrating out of nowhere to Israel, and it's a proven fact. In 2016, they suddenly had all these large birds, and when I was over there, they were being pointed out to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And And this is in the Bible. They're here for this. They're here.
They're coming.
They're here for Ezekiel 38. They're already there.
Man.
They started coming over 6 years ago, and the Israelis are wondering, gee, why do we have all these new birds? These big, these large birds, predatory birds. And so the birds are going to be there. In verse 6, I will send thee, he says again, a fire on Russia and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles. So he's talking more about fire. Verse 9, and they that dwell in the cities of Israel shall go forth, set on fire, and burn the weapons, all the shields and the bucklers, the bows, the arrows, and the hand staves, the spears. So verse 11, it shall come to pass in that day that I will give unto Gog a place there of graves in Israel, the valley of the passengers on the east of the sea, and it shall stop the noses of the passengers, that's of travelers, that's the smell.
Yeah.
Okay, because you know you got 800,000 dead guys, right? And there they shall bury Gog and all his multitude, and they shall call it the valley of Hammond Gog. That's verse 11. And so, look, get this, verse 12. And 7 months shall the house of Israel be burying all those enemy soldiers, that so they could cleanse the land,
because it stinks.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, you guys, should we finish this out, or do you want to? And then, with the verses, or
Yeah. I mean, these are pretty clear signposts as to things that will happen in this war. So, I mean, yeah, let's keep going.
God is being very clear here. It's going to take him 7 months to bury the dead. It's going to take him 7 years to remove all the debris. And verse 13, yea, all the people of the land shall bury them. It shall be to them a renowned day, and that I will be glorified, saith the Lord. Verse 14, and they shall never sever out men and continual employment. They're going to they'll be employing people, passing through the land to bury with the passengers those that remain upon the face of the earth to cleanse it. After the end of 7 months shall they search. Okay, verse 17, and thou son of man, thus saith the Lord God, speak unto every feathered fowl, to every beast of the field, assemble yourselves, come, gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice, that do sacrifice for you, even a great sacrifice upon the mountains of Israel, that you may eat flesh and drink blood. Boy, this is some deep stuff. Verse 19, and you shall eat fat till you be full. He's talking to the wild animals and the new predatory birds that have migrated there. And drink blood till you be drunken of my sacrifice, which I have sacrificed for you. Thus you shall be filled at my table with horses and chariots, with mighty men, with all the men of war from Russia, Turkey, Sudan, possibly Germany. That's up in the air, and Iran. All right. This is the next war. This is. And this is before the rapture. Right. Can I say this? Some people say another reason this is not happening in the tribulation. I've heard some people say, oh, this is going to be early tribulation right away. No, because it's before the rapture, because think about this. It's going to take them 7 years to clean up the debris. So they're not even done cleaning up the debris before the last battle, Armageddon, happens at the end of the 7 years. So this is coming. It's going to be Ezekiel 38. It's going to be the rapture of the church. All right? And if you are left behind, don't put a chip in your body. Don't let them do that. You guys want to close it out with anything?
Well, I mean, just to speak to that, exactly what you're talking about. This is separate from Revelations in the way that Revelations talks about how different fractions of the world are going to die. Different amounts of people are going to die because it talks about the four horsemen, so on and so forth. So this isn't that worldwide thing.
No.
But it's interesting to think about the World Economic Forum and even Bill Gates and the people that are all aligned with, they talk about depopulation processes of the earth, taking the populations down. This is not that thing. This is not, but there's players right now in the world that are hoping to take those populations down.
Absolutely.
For whatever reasons. I mean, it's It's demonic, though. It's sick.
Yes, yes. I don't think Bill Gates has ever hidden that.
No,
In fact,
No,
no,
he hasn't.
he doesn't.
That he
He
believes-
doesn't at all.
no. So, and obviously, going back to earlier episodes, if you take away meat, right?
Right.
You know, just up here,
Yeah.
I went a whole winter. I was on the Daniel diet. Okay, the Daniel diet,
How'd
and
it
I'm
go?
not making fun of that diet, but I kind of went overboard with it, and I did it for like 50 days.
Yeah.
And I had extreme problems physically. My heart sped up. I had a terrible sinus infection. I go in, and actually it was a natural doctor that said, you can't take animal fat away from
Right.
up here
Right.
in this environment,
Climate.
in this climate.
Yeah.
If you throw away the animal fat, you're gonna struggle. You can't
Absolutely.
just live on peanut butter.
Right.
You're gonna struggle.
Right.
And I saw that firsthand. That the only thing was just overdoing. What's the Daniel diet? It's supposed to be like 23 days or
Right.
something.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
it
you
was
went
working.
overkill?
So
Shocker.
Yeah.
it was working. So I just kept doing it.
Right.
Right. And so that's a whole nother story in itself. We were in the state tournament, and I got lost in the Target Center about 10 minutes before I was supposed to coach a game. But you know, this is coming. Ezekiel 38 is coming. It's gonna happen a lot quicker
Yep.
than the Ukrainian buildup.
Right.
How they're already there,
Right.
right? And no one's paying attention.
Yep.
Iran's bringing truckloads and truckloads into Syria. Israel is bombing them with surface-to-surface missiles as we speak.
Right.
All right. On a daily basis, they're shelling Damascus, trying to take out these weapons that Iran is bringing in. So,
I mean, our intro says be watchmen on the wall. So
Right.
be aware. Don't take a lot of news, just the surface info. Make sure you look into it, and be a watcher of the signs of the times.
Right.
that's all we're doing here. That's
Yeah.
all we're trying to do. And so that's why we went, 100% scriptural today, because this is coming.
Absolutely.
The Gog-Magog war, as some call it, or the Ezekiel 38 war, is coming. And my mother's so into it that she thinks she's going to go over there and witness it. So we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, I know people know this, but you can follow us. We're on all over. We're on social media.
That's right.
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube.
Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, click subscribe and follow so you get all the notifications whenever stuff comes out.
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys tuning in with us. And I can honestly say this will never cost money. I mean, this will always be free, and we're always going to put our time into this, and we'll always be ready to go. And it's not about conspiracies. We won't talk to you about conspiracies. It's all things that are really happening. God bless you guys. Psalm 91, be safe, and
right.
you have no reason to worry if Jesus is your Savior. God bless you.